Hello, everyone. I
Hi
think
everyone.
we're just gonna maybe just hold on for like a couple seconds, just wait for everyone to get into the call and get set up. Um, yeah, there's some people in the waiting room. Okay, so welcome everyone to the 2025 Croucher Study Awards Q&A webinar. There's a slim chance that maybe some of you have attended last year's, but we sort of host this every year as a chance for applicants to have their questions answered. This is also obviously an excellent opportunity to have questions answered by our scholars. So we have three scholars with us today. We have Peter, who is based in Netherlands, but is actually currently in New York for a conference. We have Sandra with us, who is based in Hong Kong, and then we also have Michael, who is based in Boston. Then there's myself. I'm Seb. I'm a program officer at Croucher Foundation, and my colleague Pony, who is also a program officer at Croucher Foundation. I'm based in the UK, in London, and Pony is based in Hong Kong. So we have a super international call here. Um, I'm just going to share my screen now, and we can get into the webinar. Hopefully everyone's sort of been admitted, so we can get started real quick. Yeah, so basically the general overview of this webinar, these are the sort of topics we're going to be covering. We're going to be starting off with a scholar panel introduction, so you'll get to hear more from the scholars and fellows themselves about who they are and their academic history. Then we're going to go into some details and FAQs about the study awards. So Pony and I will sort of guide you through that. Some questions you might already be having if some of you have begun your applications. Then we're going to go into some advice in terms of application prep, some advice in terms of interview prep, and also other general advice that we can have from our scholars. And then at the very end, we're going to move to an open Q&A. So a couple things about this Zoom call. You'll have noticed by now that you're not able to turn on your video and you're not able to unmute yourselves. So those two functions are turned off. You also are not able to use the chat function, but what you can do is if you sort of bring your mouse down to the bottom of the screen and hover over the little icons that pop up, you should see a button that says Q&A. And when you click that, you're going to be able to submit your questions to us. And all of us are hosts, so we'll be able to see your questions. And so those questions will be answered at the end. We'll have a segment at the end of the webinar where we can go through those questions and hopefully answer as many of them as we can. The aim is to keep this webinar under an hour. So we'll see how things go. It might be shorter than that. It won't go on longer than that. So hopefully we can address most of those questions. And unless Pony has something to add, we'll go ahead and get straight on with our scholar introductions. Pony?
No, go
No?
ahead.
Okay. So first up, Peter, would you mind please introducing yourself to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Peter. As Sab say, I'm now based in Netherlands, and my research journey actually started all the way back when I was doing my bachelor and also my master in physics in CHK. And after that, I go to Institute NICAF in Netherlands to pursue my PhD also in physics. And after that, I go to Utrecht for being a postdoctoral researcher, which is also my current position. But then later, next year, I will go back to NICAF as a Croucher and also as a NWO Vandy scholar, NWO Vandy fellows to pursue my research. So my research interest is mostly in astrophysics. More particularly, I do things like gravitational waves, kilonova, gamma ray afterbursts, and so on to study neutron stars. And so basically my study and my research direction is a lot more, let's say, data analysis as well, not much very theoretical or experimental. So if you have similar interests or similar thing that you're working on, you're very welcome to ask me a question about that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. I know it's early in New York, so appreciate you being here. And next, we're going to go to Michael, who is also have an early morning start today. Hi, Mike. Do you mind sharing your background with everybody?
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Mike. I'm a math PhD at MIT. Yeah, so I'm originally from Hong Kong. I did my undergrad degree in Australia, initially at the University of Melbourne for 3 years. So pretty standard 3-year math degree. By the end of it, I became pretty interested in wanting to do more of it. I also realized I was pretty good at it. So I applied to do 4th year, which is sort of like a separate optional thing in Australia. Um, but Melbourne didn't offer it. So I went over to the Australian National University, which is in a different city. And the main thing you do in that 4th year is something called an honors thesis, which is basically like a senior thesis or like a capstone project kind of thing. And I didn't really know I was getting what I was getting myself into. I just picked a project that kind of sounded cool, and that ended up being something in differential geometry, or the intersection between differential geometry and partial differential equations. Um, and yeah, so I became pretty interested. I wanted to do more of it. So by the end of that, I decided to apply to a PhD. And well, I got very lucky, and someone at MIT was willing to accept me. And well, now I'm here doing the same thing. Um, Before I started my PhD, or right before I started my PhD, I learned about the Croucher Scholarship. So I applied during my 1st year. I got it during my 2nd year, and well, now I'm into my 3rd year and still receiving it. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Moving on to Sandra. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Sandra. So I did my undergraduate degree in the University of Edinburgh, and typically, Scotland, their undergraduate degree will take 4 years, but because I did IBDP, and yeah, so basically I skipped 1 year and only studied for 3 years. So I studied, although my degree, it says biological sciences and zoology, but we don't actually just study animals. It's in fact more about ecology and evolutionary biology. And then right now, I'm in my 2nd year of my PhD in CUHK, that is under Professor Hon-Ming Lam, and currently my project work on using multiomics, that is, some of you might heard of it, using metagenomic, metatranscriptomic, and metabolomics, etc., to try to decipher how do soybean, as a very important crop, interact with the soil microbiome. So it's quite a jump from my ecology background into a PhD in molecular biotechnology, but yeah, hopefully, so some of you might think, oh, whether it's okay to switch to a slightly different field, etc. So if you have any questions regarding that, feel free to ask me. And also before that, I actually did a year of being a junior research assistant in the same lab. And also, actually, how I met my current supervisor is that during an internship back in high school summer. So yeah, and we kept in touch since. And then after graduating from my undergraduate degree, then I just contacted Professor Lam, who is my mentor since then. Then yeah, we just discussed, and then I just got into the lab, starting as a junior research assistant. Then later, Professor Lam asked me, "Oh, are you interested in pursuing a PhD in my lab as well?" Then yeah, that's how things kick-started. And similar to Michael, I also applied for Croucher when my PhD has already started, and which is why my Butterfield Croucher studentship commenced this year during my 2nd year.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for sharing. As you might see, there might be a little thing at the top of your screen that says this meeting is being recorded. That's something I wanted to bring up as well. So this Zoom call is being recorded and will be put on our YouTube channel. And so if there's any, you don't have to take notes furiously throughout this call, you will be able to go back and listen. And if you find any of our Scholar or Fellows profiles particularly interesting, I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you reach out. But yeah, if Pony wouldn't mind now, I'm just going to stop my screen share, and Pony is going to take us through the study award pages on our website. Hopefully you're all familiar with that. So, yep, Pony.
Thanks for Fansep. So I just want to really quickly have an overview sharing about how our 4 study awards. So we support study awards in the stream of natural science, technology, and biological and medical sciences. So it is an annual exercise. So right now we are calling for applications for the 2025-2026 cohort. So probably you have already seen this page, which contains all of our 4 main study awards: the scholarship, the fellowship, the studentship, and the science communication studentship. So scholarship is for PhD studies overseas. We sponsor up to 3 years. Fellowship is for PhD study, postdoctorate research studies overseas. We sponsor up to 2 years. So this is for early career researchers. For studentship in Hong Kong, if you're choosing to pursue a full-time PhD in Hong Kong, this is for you. And this one, science communication studentship, is for you if you want to pursue a master degree in relation to science communication, then this is for you. So these are the 4 major study awards that we are opening for application right now. And one thing I want to highlight right here is that we do have some core awards with several institutions, namely Cambridge, Oxford, and Max Planck. So the selection process of this core award is not, they are separate awards, but they are not, we're not opening new or separate core applications, but instead the selection process is that we will nominate suitable applicants from our existing applicants for this round of application, and then we will nominate to the institution. So namely, if you are applying for a scholarship and eventually you get a PhD offer from either Oxford or Cambridge, we would nominate you for the selection process. And then similarly for fellowship, if you are applying for Max Planck and you get a postdoc research offer, then we will also consider you in the application, in the nomination procedures. And on top of the core award, we also have a top culture junior research fellowship, as well as like Sandra is having right now, she has a Butterfield studentship. So these are the overview of the pages that probably you have already read through, including the notes of application as well. So one thing I do want to highlight is that once you click start your application button right here, you will be brought to a page to begin your application. So if you have not created an account yet, you will be prompted to create a new account with us so that you can take your time to complete your whole application. So you do not have to complete your application at one go. So we really do encourage you to start creating an account and take your time to understand what information is needed in the application, and then just remember to submit your full application in time, then it will be all right. So back to you, Seth.
Unmute myself. Thank you so much, Pony. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, there's plenty of information on our website. We do try our best to sort of assume what all the questions people would have might be, and then already kind of have that information on the website. So if you haven't done so already, like Pony pointed out, please have a thorough look through all of those pages, particularly the pages that are most relevant to you. And if there's a notes for applicants section, have a read through that as well. And yeah, just hopefully any questions you might have can be answered by those pages. But one of the reasons we host this webinar is because I know that there's a few questions that are a little bit more niche or unique to each individual. And so hopefully we can address those as we go through the webinar today. So let me just go back to sharing my screen. Yeah, can everyone see that? Yep. Okay, so we're just going to go into FAQs. So what we did was a lot of you kindly submitted questions when you registered. And so that's very helpful for us because we can sort of gather the ones that were the most commonly asked and go through them. So Pony, do you mind taking us through some of these FAQs for the first, for this webinar? Thank you.
So I get the first question a lot about success rate. We do not, like the selection panel do not decide based on a quota, but on average in the past 5 years, we have a success rate like 17 to 26%. So this can be a benchmark, but again, we are not deciding based on the quota, but more on the quality of your research proposal. Another really common question is about the proposal page limit. And 6 page is like an all-inclusive limit. So make the best use of your space. And we would recommend that you would put your like first author publication, if any, into that research proposal as well. For studentship, we don't have any age limit. And then if in any case you get another award, or you receive any kind of different fundings or salary together with a cultural award because you want to avoid double funding, you do have to notify us. About the application timing, around March to April 2025, we will have the interview sections, and then we will notify you before May. Although we do want to like make it as early as possible, like this is a rough timeline that we are planning, and the interview will be done over Zoom. So you don't need to plan like flying back to Hong Kong for the interview. For referees, we only accept 2, so you can choose the best 2 that would be the most helpful for the applications. Am I eligible to apply if I go for part-time or online? No, for both. So we only accept full-time study and like in-campus PhD studies. IELTS result is not required. And we don't require you to like come back to Hong Kong after completing your culture study awards. But if you do choose to come back to Hong Kong, we do have a startup allowance included already in your offer, in your award, that if you come back to Hong Kong within 6 years of your PhD graduation and you can secure a tenure track position in any UGC funded institution in Hong Kong, then you will have that startup allowance for you to kickstart your career in Hong Kong.
Thank you. So moving on, a couple more questions that we got. Again, these are some of the most common questions. Will I be eligible if I did my undergrad or master's degree at an overseas institution? So yes, this is actually quite common. And so yeah, whether you did your undergrad, let's say in the UK or the US or Europe or anywhere, that's totally fine. Will the allowance/funding be liable to tax in the host country? So this is a tricky one to just give a straight answer. Obviously, taxes can be very different depending on where you're doing your research, what country you're doing your research in. This might be a good time to maybe turn to our scholars. And yeah, is there anyone that has had experience or what was the situation for yourselves with the allowance in Peter's in the Netherlands, Sandra in Hong Kong, Michael in the US?
Yeah, so maybe I can start. So for me, because of my culture application is a bit like more complicated in the first place when I first begin. So actually, I also know that, like, for instance, in Germany, we don't need to pay any tax, the allowance. However, if you go to Netherlands, you need to pay tax. So is even in EU, it's still very country dependent. So if people is applying, it's definitely best to check not just with your potential supervisor, but also ask he or she to see, actually to check with the the HR department and so on to see, like, do they know what is the tax situation there? Because that is quite significant, especially in Europe.
For the US, you pay federal tax and state tax. I think the Croucher is exempt from federal tax. But it might, like, for state tax, it might vary from state to state. Here in Massachusetts, I think it's also exempt from state tax. Actually, no, it's not. It's not exempt from state tax. So I don't have to pay federal tax, but I do have to pay Massachusetts state tax. You might get a top up from your institution in addition to the Croucher. So that, like, your institution might top you up to the full amount of, like, what's the default funding is. That part will probably be taxed normally.
Thank you.
In Hong Kong, because if you were a full-time PhD student, then you won't be taxed anything.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, I mean, you can see, particularly with Peter's example, even it can vary in the EU. So we really do recommend that you double, triple check or even seek tax advice on this. But hopefully there should be plenty of resources online to help you figure that out. The third question I have here is, does Croucher give priority to research that benefits Hong Kong or to those who indicate they will return to Hong Kong? Okay, it's a good question. I can see why you might think that, but no, in the same way that we don't have a requirement for you to come back, there's no sort of preferential treatment if people are indicating that they will come back. So that's not something you need to be worried about. If I'm applying for more than one PhD project with different topics in the same field, how should I go about writing the research proposal? Okay, so I can see why this would be a little bit tricky. What we do say is that we highly recommend you choose one research topic. You can apply to more than one institution, so you can submit to institutions. But the reason we say you should choose one topic is because your interview and your selection will be based on your research topic. And so, you know, it just makes things clear, and it won't be possible to say that you might have two. So please try and narrow that down to one if possible. The final question we have here is, can I reapply next year if I'm not offered this year? I mean, yeah, the short answer is yes. There's no rule that says that once you apply, you can't apply again. So in the case that you're not successful, you can always reapply, or you can get in touch with us and see if it'll be possible to reapply in your specific case, but usually it's yes. The only thing I will mention is that we can't give feedback. So if your application is unsuccessful, we can't tell you the things that can be improved. So yeah, even if you contact us asking for feedback, that's not something we can provide. I think that's a majority of the FAQs. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if there's any question you have here that you either pre-submitted and for some reason it's not here, or you have, a question has come up in the last days, or even during this call, please feel free to use the Q&A function. It should just be down here somewhere at the bottom of your chat. And we should leave some time at the end to go through those. Now, moving on, this sort of section is just going to be sort of more advice-based questions. So I have some questions here on my phone that I'm going to throw to our scholars and fellows. And yeah, maybe if Peter or Sandra or Mike, if you have any particular story or advice that you could give, that would be very helpful. So let's begin with application prep. One question I have here is, what is the most important thing to prepare for in an application process? Do you have any tips? So I know that's quite broad, but if anyone wants to jump in and offer any advice about the application, just sort of think back to when you applied as a potential scholar or fellow. Maybe we could start with you, Peter.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there are actually multiple things is very important. So because the application process is also not very bold, to be honest. So first, of course, your proposal has to be very well written, which I would, at least for my case, I would suggest you to write in very detail, but also extend a bit. So let's say the page limit is 6, I actually wrote all the way to 10 and then cut it down later. And in the application, never write like your academic journey of discovering you want to do that and so on. Not in that of 5. So you do not you would not want to write a report, let's say, but rather you would want to give a very clear introduction and why is it important, why you want to do that, how you're going to do that. That's pretty much it. And one thing that's quite surprising for me during my preparation is that for the interview process, so you need to, because there's like a 5 minutes self-introductory session at first, and that one actually I practiced quite a few times and so on until you can get the flow, you can get everything done in 5 minutes. So that might be maybe something that easily overlooked because you think, oh, it's just 5 minutes, I have a slides and that's it. But however, that actually takes me, I would say, a similar fraction of my time as writing a proposal. So that's the thing that I suggest you to keep your mind on.
Thank you, Peter. Mike, do you have anything you could add to that?
Yeah, I think, well, as for preparing the application, definitely the most important thing is going to be your research proposal. Make sure it's well written, and as Peter said, it's based on material things. So like, you don't really need to include anything that's personal. Maybe except for, like things like, okay, well, I want to go to this place because, or this university to do my PhD because blah blah blah. There are very good resources there, there are good people there, that kind of thing. But the rest of your research proposal is going to be like based, it's going to be about the science. Make sure the project that you talk about is realistic, is suitable for you. Like no one's asking for something like for you to achieve some kind of breakthrough. A good proposal is one that you can actually carry out. And so yeah, that's my advice for the research proposal. And yeah, as Peter said, you're going to have to do a 5-minute introduction of your topic during the interview at the start. A good way to sort of prepare for that is, well, to make sure you're telling a good story in your research proposal. So you can just base in your research proposal, you can motivate, like take a page, maybe half a page to like motivate very well what your topic is about. And you can just take that and sort of craft your introduction around that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mike.
I think both Peter and Michael have already covered really good points. And
Yep.
I think my major point to add is that for both your research proposal and also for your interview, one really good way is practice explaining your project to others, especially those who maybe just your family and friends, because if you are successful in explaining your project to laymen, then it means that you're really good at explaining your project in general. And for your application and interview, for my interview, it's actually just a 3-minute. I was given 3 minutes to explain your project. That's all, and we are only allowed to display a 1-slide PowerPoint, and you have to submit it beforehand. So, yes, definitely checking your time, practicing, and also make sure that both your auditory and visual communications are effective. Then it's really important. And again, always practice with others. Don't be shy. You can even record yourself and also then send it to others, and then and just explain to your friend what are you doing and what will you plan to do, and their feedback or their questions will be very helpful to let you understand, oh, perhaps at what point should I emphasize on and also elaborate more on, etc.
Thanks a lot, everyone. I think the point that Sandra just made is an excellent point. Obviously, if you can explain it to the average person, that's a great place to build from. I'm sort of the definition of that, because when I meet, I have the chance to meet scholars based in the UK, or I flew out to Boston a couple of weeks ago and met Mike and some of the MIT scholars. I am the definition of a layman, because I don't have any expertise in this stuff. And so, you know, in general, our scholars and fellows do a great job of explaining stuff to me. So if you can explain it to someone like me, then you can, I'm sure you'll be just fine on your interview. In terms of, so continuing on with the application prep, I think that's all really helpful advice. One question that was submitted was, how do I write a detailed research proposal if my research topic is not yet 100% decided? So I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but do you have any advice for this particular individual?
Yeah, when I applied, I was in the same situation. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. And in math, it's quite hard to know what to actually, pull through and do what you actually say. So my advice for that would be just to pick one thing, like pick one question or pick some topic. You don't have to be absolutely sure about it. And well, just talk about that during your or in your research proposal. Yeah, like it doesn't have to be something that you're dead set on doing. I think what the interview, like the committee who's reviewing your application, what they'd be looking at is whether you can approach that or talk about that with maturity, like with the appropriate level of maturity for where you are in your career. So yeah, it doesn't have to be something that you're dead set on doing. Like you need to be able to explain like why the background behind the topic, like why it's relevant, like why if you were to choose to pursue this topic, do you have the appropriate resources for that and that kind of thing. You don't have to be dead set on a certain topic. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Peter or Sandra, did you want to add to that, or happy with Mike's answer?
No, I don't have much to add.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I think that this is a question that we get a lot as well, is sort of like, some of you touched on it already, but how technical and detailed should my proposal be? I can understand that depending on the audience that you assume is going to be reading your proposal, you want to tweak it. So what we can say is our selection panel, basically we have a selection panel of experts in the natural sciences, technology, and the biological and medical sciences. So perhaps that lines up with your research, perhaps it doesn't. And of course, everyone's research is going to be quite specific and niche. And so there's no guarantee that someone in your exact specific part of your field will be reading your paper. So, I think it's important to still stay as detailed and as technical as possible and demonstrate your understanding, but also not to overassume that the person reading knows everything, and sort of just strike that balance. So moving on, unless there's anything that the three of you would like to add on to the application preparation or the proposal preparation, I mean, we can always jump back, but sort of moving on to the interview. A lot of you already sort of brought up a few things, but maybe I think the interview is something that a lot of applicants worry about, just because, yeah, I can understand interviews can be quite nerve-wracking. So maybe starting with Sandra, could you just sort of like give us a little, taste of what your interview was like, how it went, how you were feeling, and any sort of like tips you might have for prepping?
Yes, sure. It's quite funny because my interview had a bit of turns and tumbles, and I thought I did so badly that I cried in my room after the interview. But anyway, so again, allow me to reiterate. Before the interview, you will be you are asked to submit a one-page PowerPoint slide to explain your your research proposal. And then during the interview, you are given 3 minutes. No introduction, no self-introduction needed. You just have to explain your research proposal. And again, the funny thing is that I went way over time, and actually I only had time to explain the very first part of my methodology, and then that's all. Then time's up. And then it's followed up by technical questions. And again, just like what Seb said, your interviewers, although they might be experts in biology, but biology is really broad, right? So they might ask you to explain, for example, what are some specific technologies you use to address your research questions? Can you explain, what are some details in your methodology? Oh, it seems like it might have some limitations of this and that. How will you overcome it, etc.? And again, so my suggestion is that at a very basic, whatever you put in your proposal and on your PowerPoint slide, you must understand it and you must be prepared to explain it. Yeah, be it certain terminologies, be it specific study design conditions, and for example, and some statistics, and how do you prepare to analyze your data. Again, although the panel will understand that you are still at its infancy of your research journey, or perhaps you haven't even started yet, but then be prepared to explain whatever you have put on your proposal, etc. And of course, please don't be like me and overrun, etc. Please practice your introduction and to your research proposal. That's very important.
Thank you, Sandra. Super helpful. Mike, anything you wanted to add? You could take us through your interview.
Yeah, so during my interview, I don't remember whether it was 3 or 5 minutes for me. It was 2 years ago, but yeah, like either 3 or 5 minutes. I think that went pretty well for me. There was one person on the interview panel who was in my field. Well, not exactly, but still in geometry, like that kind of thing. So I was asked a couple of technical questions, but it did seem like we were just sort of talking at each other rather than to each other. Yeah, he was asking me questions, and I wasn't really giving. I didn't feel like I was giving proper answers at the time, but I guess maybe the impression was that I knew what I was talking about. So after just 2 or 3 questions, the other interviews chimed in to ask me sort of general questions about like what makes you interested in this kind of thing? Why do you want to apply for the Croucher? So actually a lot of the interview, I'd say 2/3 of it was on questions about me, questions about why I'm interested in research. So from personal experience, it was a bit less technical than I expected. So I mean, be prepared to be able to communicate like your intentions and understand why you want to do a PhD and apply for the Croucher. Yeah.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, so for me, it's a bit different because like I'm applying for the postdoc fellowship and so on. So actually my interview was a bit more on the technical side. And luckily, because like I have a bunch of friends and also like supervisor and so on that I can talk with, that I present like my project to them. So actually I think they more or less already cover all the questions that was being asked during the interview. So if you are also at a similar background as me, so you are applying for postdoc, definitely ask around to ask people to actually to try to basically challenge your proposal, what is missing, and if there's missing link, how can you do that, and so on. This is definitely very helpful in my case, at least.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that's all super helpful advice. And if you come out of your interview and like Sandra, even if you think you failed and you start crying, she's proof that, you might have done really well and you might end up as a Croucher Scholar Fellow one day. So don't give up. I guess moving on from the interview, a common question we have is around supervisors. So one person asks, can I have advice on deciding my supervisor? Especially if they're keen to take students or discuss prospects once the financial support is substantiated. Is there anyone that feels particularly adept at answering this question?
Oh,
Sandra?
I think that question comes from someone who has already reached out to prospective supervisors, and it seems like that supervisor is really responsive and proactive. So I think that is a good sign. And I
Yeah.
think in terms of choosing a supervisor, it's I have a tip that was from my previous mentor in Edinburgh University. That is, please don't just talk to the supervisor. Please also ask them whether you will be able to talk to the lab postdocs or current PhD students, etc. Because, you know, how a supervisor present himself or herself might be quite different from how he or she actually is. So definitely talk to your lab members as well. And also a supervisor is important, but also whether you can work well and mingle well with your future lab mates, it's also really important. And yeah, trust me, the people side of things when during a PhD is often it's part of what make or break your PhD. And I'm very privileged to have a lab that is extremely both technically supportive and also emotionally and socially supportive as well. So definitely talk to your supervisor and the current lab members.
Thank you so much. Peter or Mike, any advice on helping to land on a supervisor?
Yeah, so for my case, so if you actually apply for a postdoc, you cannot just approach a supervisor like off the blue, to be honest, because you're already you should be able to be quite knowing people around, already met quite a few people and so on. You talk with them. And actually, the interview started long before you think. Basically, when they first meet you, they already can tell like how good or how bad you are, and then they start to build an impression and so on. But then, of course, you can also ask them like, okay, I want to come to do a postdoc, like, what do you think, whether it's good or not, and so on. Then you can start the conversation. But then whether it's a good supervisor, again, I think what Sandra is suggesting is very, very good, because you definitely want to talk with his or her student or his or her postdoc and so on, because you never know. People actually can be quite different, how they treat people and so on and so forth. So definitely ask those, but it's very hard to of the blue find a supervisor, at least for a postdoc stage, to be honest.
Thank you,
I speak
Peter.
for the US. So in the US, I don't know if this is the case in other countries, but in the US, you don't have to pick an advisor, or you don't have to like settle on an advisor until maybe your second year or so. So during the first year, you'll if you're in on the experimental side of things, then it's likely that you'll rotate between labs. And well, I think like, during that process, you'll get a feel of what you like what you like about particular advisors or particular labs. If you're on the theoretical side, then you might not get that kind of like structure of rotating between different labs. In that case, I think it's good to like have meetings or regular meetings with one or two potential advisors to get a taste of their style. Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like for say for math or for something that's theoretical, um, you want to pick an advisor who who you feel easy communicating with, because you're going to be talking about pretty abstract ideas a lot of the time. And yeah, like just trust your gut feeling. If you feel like you vibe well with a particular professor or potential advisor, if you know like if that's the case, then they're probably the right choice for you.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a chance that depending on the Q&A questions that have been put in the chat, we might come back to some of these topics. But in the interest of time, I think maybe I see that I'm sharing my screen, so it's a bit hard for me to see. But Pony, I assume we have some questions in the Q&A section of this Zoom call? Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. I'm just going to stop sharing now so that I can have a look myself. I believe the three of you also will have Peter, Sandra, and Michael will also be able to see the questions that come in. So you can just sort of shout out if there's one in particular that you would like to answer. But Pony, have you spotted any questions that we could go through?
Yeah, Alicia asked about the Office Cambridge application. So you do have to apply for a Culture Study Award because we, like, due to personal data policies, we are not communicating with the institution directly in this case. So what it means is that you will first apply to us at Culture, and then at the later stage when you get the offer from Office of Cambridge, we will nominate to that core award. So like, yeah, you do have to apply to Culture Study Award. So I hope that clarifies.
We have a question from Queena Ng saying, is it possible to extend the scholarship for more than 3 years since some PhDs last for 4 years? I believe that's no, is that correct, Pony?
You can continue to your studies to finish your PhD because in different countries the PhD takes different timing, but our sponsorship is up to 3 years for scholarship.
Okay, thank you. So, just to mention as well, like Pony said, it's up to 3 years. So depending on when you start, it could be 3 years, could be 2, could be 1. Let's have a look through. So Jimmy, your question, how specific should my proposal be? Should I adjust the language to accommodate? I think we've kind of gone through that. I think I see you asked that question quite early on in the call, so hopefully we were able to answer that for you. Same with Ria, your question on how to prepare a successful proposal. If you feel like you have a follow-up question to that maybe you feel we weren't able to touch or our scholars weren't able to add on, then feel free to type another question into the chat. Okay, here's a question from Wesley. Wesley says, for the panelists, how did you describe your past research experience in your proposal? How much space did you allocate / did you talk about all your experiences or only what you felt was relevant to the proposal? Thanks. Anyone want to answer that?
Yeah, sorry, we just keep jumping.
No worries.
So definitely you would not to write everything, only write the thing that's relevant, to be honest. Otherwise, it'll be very long, and the panel may not be able to like tell whether you are very good or very good fit of what you're trying to do. So trying to be detailed but also concise. This, like, I think it's just a general rule of thumb when writing a proposal.
Yeah, I also have something to. Oh, sorry, Michael. Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I actually allocated a page out of the 6 pages, which is quite long. So as mentioned, actually almost all of my previous experiences were dealing with macro, or you can say conventional ecology. So going to field trips and also doing marine biology and perhaps sometimes forest ecology, etc. And I think, in fact, during the interview, I was asked, oh, we can see that your previous research background or even, your education was quite different from what you're doing for your PhD. So why is that? So I think you just in that case, you just have to be sincere in explaining why have you developed sort of a new research interest, etc. And also I think what's important is that both during the interview and also on your research proposal explaining your past experience, explain how will those skills be transferable or applicable to your proposed topic. That is very important.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so one second. Yeah, so for describing past research experience, I see that as more of a like it's part of the part of your application where you need to sort of explain why you are the right person to do this. So definitely if you have something that's if you have past research experience that's relevant, directly relevant to the project that you're describing in the proposal, okay, definitely include that. There's no question. If you have something that's less relevant, then I think it's probably reasonable to still include a line or two just briefly describing what you did. Um, just just so as to not discount yourself and your past experiences. Um, and as Sandra said, if you can find a way to link that into the proposal and discuss why those skills, the skills that you learn from your other research experiences are transferable to the one to the project that you described in the project, and that would be great as well. In my case, I did my senior thesis more or less directly related, or very closely related to what I described in my proposal. So I had a paragraph about that. I also had one research experience that was kind of completely disjoint from that. So I just wrote like one paragraph, short 3-4 line paragraph talking about what I did and the output of that.
Nice. Thank you very much. I hope, Ria, you've just put a question into the chat. I hope that was able to sort of explain what sections can go into your proposal. We have an interesting question from Martha who says, other than providing funding, how has being a Croucher Fellow affected you in your PhD/postdoc? So how's being a fellow? So perhaps for Peter, this question.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you repeat?
So Martha, other than providing funding, how has being a Croucher Fellow affected you in your PhD/postdoc?
Okay, so for me at least, like attending this kind of course is definitely affecting me. This one of the thing, because you can only like contribute to the sort of the culture foundation only if you're a fellow, to be honest. And also actually what is quite interesting for me is the network, because the Project Fellowships has quite a lot of fellows and so on. Actually, you have access to like the whole list and so on. And you get to like know a lot of people actually they are from similar background and so on. But of course, I just get my like very recently, so I didn't have a chance to actually fully to reach out. But I definitely think that that is like the network itself is actually quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we host a sort of a symposium once a year in which our scholars and fellows fly back to Hong Kong. So, like Peter said, it's his first year, but that's definitely a great chance for you to be able to network. And it's not so much like it's a club per se, but it's a great way to reach out to other people who are part of the Croucher Foundation, and definitely a great starting point in a conversation you might have regards to networking. Let's see. Are there any questions, Pony, that you wanted to go through? Actually, some of the questions are being addressed in the chat by text. But any others, Pony?
Simple ones like Weasley Shun asked about copies of like HKDSC, etc. So if you are attending high school in the US, you will submit anything that is that prove your academic result with the school standards, like your GPA, or like how's the calculation is like the full mark. If it's 4, and then they get how much out of 4. So describe in a descriptive way. Let us know the scoring criteria, then it will be sufficient.
And then I think we have two people asking sort of similar questions. One is, if I've received another fellowship, do I have to choose between Croucher and the other one? And the other question being, am I eligible to apply if I've started my PhD and I'm already receiving another grant? Bonnie?
Yeah, I think I've also shared earlier that we would avoid double funding, but it doesn't mean that you cannot apply to us, because there are times that other fundings might sponsor you for, let's say, your maintenance allowance, like stipend. And the whole package of the project award includes many other stuff like research allowance or fellowship, that like transportation, like arrival. So we will see and on the offer level on which item to cover, and just to avoid double funding on the itemized way.
Thank you. I hope, yeah, for Ambrose as well, I think you had a similar question, so hopefully that clarifies. Let's have a look. We have a lot of questions. We have about 5 minutes left, so we might not have time to go through all of them. However, we've got one from Ivan saying, when will the invitation to interview be issued this year?
Tentatively March to April 2025.
Yep. Okay, great. Someone said, does the level of your postdoc salary in the new country affect the amount of your postdoc fellowship that you will receive, I guess, award that you will receive? Do you know the answer to this, Pony?
Level of a postdoc salary. So again, if you get salary, it means that it's the same question about like double funding thing.
Right,
We'll
yeah.
avoid double funding. So we will adjust accordingly case by case.
Okay. Great. Let's have a look. Again, some of these questions, the answers will be on the website on, you know, in your respective award page. And also some of these are questions that if you were to email us at Croucher, we could answer for you. So we've got a couple minutes here left in the webinar. If anyone has questions for the panel, just because this is a unique opportunity to have Sandra, Peter, and Mike here with us. So yeah, I'll continue. We can continue scrolling through, but if you have any more advice related questions, feel free to pop those into the Q&A section. Let's have a look. Is there any, Jerry just popped in, is there any age limit for the applicant if I started to work and I want to do a PhD?
No.
I don't believe so, no. I don't believe there's any specific age limit, so you'd be fine. Here, Lynn asks a question that's actually quite common. I have a question about postdoc fellowship. Can I change my host institution after getting the offer? Bonnie, would you like to answer this? I believe you would have to reach out to us. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not something that you could sort of just. It could be possible, but something that we would ask that you reach out to us, and we can. Each case is different, so we can try and go through that with you at the time. Someone says, Nicholas says, I've noticed many of the past awardees are from natural sciences. Can you please clarify if there are any specific subjects or limitations regarding the field of study for this scholarship, particularly for students interested in pursuing degrees in education or social sciences? Moni, do you have an answer for that?
We support natural sciences, technology, biological, and medical sciences. So these are the three mainstream that we at Culture Foundation supports in general. So education and social science, like if it is relevant to the science communication, and you're pursuing a master degree, then it will be the science communication studentship will be applicable. But other than that, it depends on the program.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Coming up to sort of the last minute here, Ivan says, as the institution may have a deadline for accepting my offer, does Croucher's offer also within the reasonable time to let me know whether I can accept the offer for this one? I mean, yeah, again, we try our best to let you know as soon as possible. Obviously, we have a lot of applicants each year, and there's a lot of things to consider. If you have a particular deadline, you can always let us know about it. But unfortunately, there's not much we can do to necessarily speed it up. However, I would say that the time you will hear back will be communicated with you clearly and is usually quite reasonable. So hopefully it should fit with your timeline. So yeah, we're just coming up to 1 hour now. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen. Like I mentioned, if you sort of still have any questions, there's a good chance that those questions will have already been answered on the website. So what I recommend is that you go to your study award page for your specific study award. You have a thorough read through all of the little drop-down menu items. And if there's a notes for applicants attached, you also have a read through that. In the case that there is a question you have that hasn't been answered by the web page, please triple check first on the web page, because we get a lot of questions coming in. You can feel free to reach out to us at info@croucher.org.hk. Another important thing is applications close at 5 p.m. Hong Kong time on the 15th of November 2024. We had an interesting story where a scholar submitted an applicant submitted their application at 5 o'clock sharp, like seconds after the deadline closed. And they were emailing us and trying to get us to reopen our applications, but unfortunately we can't do that. And so please don't leave it to the last second of the last minute. Try and get your applications in, I mean, hours before, days before if you can, but at the very least, like 20, 30 minutes before. You never know. You may have, Wi-Fi issues, connection issues. So please don't wait till the very last minute. Is there anything that the three of you, Mike, Sandra, Peter, would like to sort of add as parting advice? If not, we can go ahead and conclude the webinar.
Just start the application or start writing your proposal early, like now. You're gonna come back to it after a week and realize it sucks. But at least you'll have the time to make changes, right? So yeah, start now, start yesterday, right? Yeah, that's my final advice.
Great advice. Yeah, realize your proposal sucks as soon as possible. Sandra?
Well, for me, I think it's just give it a shot. And sometimes, well, very often, that when you're writing your proposal or preparing for your interview, you might just rediscover some aspects of your research. And yeah, for me, during my preparation for the interview, I actually just fell in love with my research topic all over again, because, rediscovering the excitement and explaining, the nitty-gritties, and also it's very exciting to fill in a knowledge gap and proposing a research to achieve that. So yeah, do enjoy the preparation process and give it a shot.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, if you are writing for postdoc, I think you're pretty much writing or already help with writing a lot of grant proposal and also fellowship and so on. So writing one extra, actually, it should be doable. And as Michael say, you should do it yesterday already. And just start writing. At the end of the day, just submit it and see how it goes.
That's excellent. Thank you, everyone. And as Pony mentioned earlier as well, you can start an application and always come back to it. So there's no need to wait till you're 100% ready. Just if you haven't done so already, just go ahead and start your application. You may have to create a Croucher account to do so, and you can just see all the content of what you may need and what you need to prepare. Pony, unless you have anything else to add, I think that's we can wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much. Like a massive thank you again to you, Mike, to you, Sandra, and Peter. This is a webinar with people in all sorts of different time zones. So really appreciate you accommodating the time. And to everyone who is going to be applying for this year's study awards, good luck. And again, if you have any questions that you weren't able to have answered in this webinar, feel free to check the website, double check that hasn't already been answered, and if not, get in touch with us at info@croucher.org.hk. But yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for attending. A recording of this should be up relatively soon on our if you just Google Croucher 2025 Q&A webinar, should come up on YouTube. And so if you want to have a listen through, you can do that. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye.